Grace to you and peace, and welcome to worship this morning. It's a lot of fun to have that 8:30 service and then come running in here and do this service. I'm so glad you're all here. And I think we just beat the rain, by the way. Welcome. We come into God's presence. I want to invite you to rise and let us share the call to worship together. The Lord is gracious and full of compassion, slow to anger, and great in mercy. The Lord is new every morning. God's love never fails. We're going to sing a new Kyrie, which means Lord, have mercy, right? And I wanted to practice it once if we could, Adam. So at least, will you play the music behind it? The words are very simple. You are the Lord, giver of mercy. You are the Christ, giver of mercy. You are the Lord, giver of mercy. So you could almost ignore reading the words and just try the few seconds of silence, because we don't expect you have a really long list of sins. Maturity, as John Lynn just reminded us, is quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger. And maturity does not get enticed by its own desires. It gets up every day and does something good. Maturity does not look into the mirror and say, oh yeah, I remember what a Christian is. Oh yeah, and then walk out or drive out into traffic and forget what it means to be Christian, right? Maturity holds ground. Maybe you didn't hear this, so I'm just going to brag on him a little bit, but our own Ryan Cunningham, that's Tom's son, took number 10 in the nation in lifting those big barbell weights. What are they called, John? You know, that they're big and they have the big round things on the end? Barbells, okay? So Ryan Cunningham took 10th in the nation for his age and his weight last week, lifting one of those things and tossing it to the ground. Now, why that's a sport, I don't know, but it is. And he got 10th in the nation. So that's this chapter. My brothers and sisters, do you with your acts of favoritism really this chapter? My brothers and sisters, do you gardens? I feel less comfortable at a rock concert. I just do not feel at home among people who are yelling and screaming and passing bodies overhead. But what I know is that thousands of people do not have that preference, right? Because they all go and pay for tickets to go to concerts. My bias makes me behave in certain ways. I don't go to rock concert. I would rather have lunch and talk to one person than go to a rock concert. That is my conscious bias about a frivolous, silly thing. But the point is, we can be awake or not awake to the reality that as individuals, we have preferences. Unconscious bias is another kind of preference. Unconscious means I live a preference, but I am not always aware, or sometimes not at all aware, that I live it. When I was in college student, poor student, I flew back and forth to Chicago to visit my parents who lived here. And because I was a poor college student, I would often land at O'Hare at some terrible time in the morning and find myself walking in strange neighborhoods, pulling a carry-on, so, for example, at 2 a.m. in the morning. And my parents lived in an apartment in an area of Chicago that even then, 100 years ago, was not a nice place. And on one such morning, as I rattled along the sidewalk on the darkened neighborhood street, pulling my little carry-on bag, there was a gaggle of young black men standing around the circle of a street lamp right on my pathway to the corner where I turned to my parents' apartment. I was afraid, and I had a few choices. I could turn around and head towards the dark houses, but they'd already seen me. Or I could keep walking towards them. As I reached for all of it, for the one who said, "You shall not commit adultery, but if you murder, you have become a transgressor of the law. So speak and so act as those who are to be judged by the law of liberty. For judgment will be without mercy to anyone who has shown no mercy. Mercy triumphs over judgment." So do you get what James is saying here? He's saying all of the laws count, and if you mess up on one, the standard is really the law of liberty, which he only quotes half of. This is Jesus all the time saying, "You shall love the Lord your God with heart, mind, soul." James so far. Chapter 1, count trouble with joy, not because of the trouble, but because God is at work in every part of our lives, even trouble. Trying to grow us up and make us mature. That's what happens when we decide to face trouble, saying, "Lord, I know that you are here somewhere."